welcome to the NGV World Podcast. Our guest today, I am so excited to have him, is Thomas Healy. He's the CEO at Hyllion. Welcome, Thomas. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to getting to share a little bit more about Hyliion and what we're up to and how we're shaking up this natural gas world.
Yeah, pretty interesting time, and I can stop. I can wait to people in the audience, in our audience, in the AGV World Podcast, to understand more about Halion. But before talking about the products, the great, interesting products, I want to know a little bit more about yourself and how did you get into the natural gas business?
Yeah, so it actually really started with kind of getting into electrification, and that was the initial mission statement of Hyliion right from the start. Was let's bring forward electric products to the commercial vehicle space, and the initial goal was let's try to reduce emissions. But we were really, we tried to stay really in tune with the industry, where we knew we also needed to be able to reduce operating costs in order
Mhm.
for fleets to be able to adopt our solutions. So, when we started this journey, we actually had a hybrid system, and then that's evolved. That's actually evolved into, the Hypertruck ERX, which is a fully electric truck that charges the batteries off of natural gas. And, in the beginning, we didn't know we were going to be using natural gas. I mean, the way we approached it is we said, what's actually the logical approach to bringing electrification forward for the long haul space? And it turns out natural gas was the winner, right? I mean, that's what made sense from an infrastructure, a cost standpoint, an emission standpoint. All those things aligned, and that's what stemmed the Hypertruck ERX.
Yeah, and I want to know that light bulb moment. Like, tell me a little bit more about that story because you know what? I've been in the natural gas industry for a long time, from 2007, since the moment I received my bachelor's degree. And one light bulb moment I had was at an exhibition, at an expo, cars expo, and I bumped into this like Volkswagen uh, stand, and there was this combustion engine for like a sedan type vehicle, and it was the same size vehicle electric engine. I mean electric motor. So I saw those two, and I was like, "There's no way to fight this." I mean, the future is the electric motor. I
Yeah.
don't know what else is going to be behind it, but it's like when I went to that moment, I knew that even being in the natural gas business, I mean, too many moving parts. It's a legacy engine, but this small thing, this gotta work. So it's kind of that light bulb moment that you have been going so far, or how did you lift it?
Yeah. So in the beginning, for me, it was I guess my initial light bulb moment was I knew a little bit about trucks, probably knew a little bit more about electrification. Saw that the passenger car world was adopting a hybrid, and the start of the EVs was kind of happening with Tesla, and it was one of these ideas of like, well, it works for the passenger car space. How can we make this work for trucking? Because trucking's the backbone of everything we buy, right? I mean, it all gets moved on a truck, and the amount of pollution that comes from those vehicles is drastic. And so, if we can reduce that, we're going to have a huge impact on the world. But I think the light bulb moment that this audience would probably be most fascinated by was, we knew that for the long haul trucking space, you need a range extender vehicle. To do a full BEV that plugs into the grid, you need massive infrastructure on the charging side. You need a huge battery pack that weighs a bunch, and there's a lot of hurdles to get there. And so that's where you really need a range extender model where you charge on board. And that light bulb moment for me was when I actually learned about renewable natural gas. So I'd known about natural gas for a while. I think everyone does. It comes into your house, you run your stove off of it, right?
Mhm.
But then in learning about renewable natural gas, where you're basically actually taking pollution and using that as a fuel in a vehicle, and we can use that as a fuel to charge batteries, that's a game changer, right? And that's something that you can get to net carbon negative or even below zero emissions levels. That's something that other fuel sources can't do, right? They cap out at getting to zero if they can even get there.
That's amazing. I mean, and everything that's happening with RNG in the United States, it's going to be a game changer. Hopefully, all policies are going to follow around. And I have a question about that in quite a bit. But right now let's talk about the products. And I don't know if you want to go in like in a chronological sense, because I'm super excited about the. Let me talk about first about the first hybrid CNG and hybrid diesel solution that you guys have, and tell more about to the audience about that one. But I'm super interested into that one, how that came into place. I know that you have some like an inventor background around that idea, and how that came to be. And is it available right now? Can we put it in some of our trucks?
Sure. So the actual concept there started by we put an e-axle on a trailer actually, and we did a trailer hybrid based system. And then we got a little bit smarter and realized, hey, if we put this up on the tractor, it actually makes a lot more sense, better payback, all the above. And then what we realized is the natural gas market, they suffer from having underpowered vehicles. So we could actually take our hybrid system, put that on a conventional natural gas truck, and add maybe somewhere in the ballpark of 25 to 35% more horsepower and torque to the vehicle. And so that was a game changer, because now you can take your natural gas trucks and make them perform more like a diesel. So that's where our hybrid product, we have two different solutions. One is focused on reducing the fuel consumption of the truck in
Mhm.
hilly terrain areas, and then the other is focused on adding horsepower and torque to the truck, which works great for conventional natural gas vehicles.
Yeah, and I understand that you actually have maybe a loan program with partnerships to that for tackling that specific product, or is for
Yeah, so
overall.
I think the one you're probably referring to is with Northwest Natural, where they adopted one of our trucks, and then they
Mhm.
actually took that vehicle out and let others try it and experience it. Who were fleets that had maybe tried natural gas before and it wasn't successful, or
All
there
right.
were fleets that were new to natural gas. And we shared some of the quotes and feedback from the fleets, but all of them had great things to say, and the drivers had great things to say. Because there's a lot of benefits that come from natural gas, not only emissions, right? You're driving costs down, you're moving to a lower cost total cost of ownership or
Mhm.
operation, as well as with our system on it. Now that vehicle has the power it needs to climb a hill, and can really meet the driver's creature comforts and needs, as opposed to being a sluggish vehicle.
Yeah, kind of the gap that LNG is trying to cover in terms of torque. Maybe right now in Mexico, for example, our truckers are starting to see the first CNG trucks. All right,
Mhm.
so they're actually talking power. Right, so it has 420 HP. That's great. I can handle that. That is good. Soon they will find out about what it means to have maybe a little bit less torque, and what it entails. Maybe we'll move forward to LNG. We're kind of years behind, but that's kind of the great thing about the hybrid solution, and I can see move forward. And I'm super interested and hope everyone could find out about helium hybrid trucks, and all of the things that we were mentioning here. I'm gonna leave all the links in the description of this episode, so you guys can be able to download them and take a look to these solutions that look amazing on the website actually. And now, Thomas, I want to move forward to like this special high the Hypertruck, the
Sure.
ERX unit that you guys offer, and how that came to place. And please tell us a little bit to us in our space in the space how it actually works. What are the pieces, the moving parts there?
Yeah, and so maybe to start with like where this ultimately goes, right? So I think you probably hear this just as much as we do. There's so much excitement and hype around hydrogen, but there's kind of this big question mark of how do we actually get there, right? You need infrastructure, you need green hydrogen production, you need to figure out how you're even going to transport hydrogen, right? There's a lot of things that come with it, but that's kind of the euphoria out there solution. And what we looked at is we said, well, why don't we take that same vehicle concept where we have a fully electric truck that uses an onboard generator to charge the batteries, but as instead of using hydrogen, let's start with using natural gas, or more specifically renewable natural gas, because that's available today, infrastructure is built out, and it's a low cost solution. And so that's where we've got, as I was mentioning, it's a full electric drive vehicle. So it's awesome to drive. Actually, I mean, when you get behind the wheel, it's smooth. It has fast acceleration. The thing most people probably don't realize about trucks is like before you even get to 15 miles per hour, you've already shifted through like six gears, and it's not a smooth experience. Versus an electric vehicle is very different. And so, we're able to bring forward all the benefits of electrification, but we also get rid of the downsides of electric, of needing huge battery packs or needing massive charging infrastructure.
Yeah.
Because instead of doing that, what we use is an onboard natural gas generator that just charges the batteries up as you drive. And you can get about 1,000 miles of range or over 1,000 miles of range with our Hypertruck. So it's going to perform like a diesel vehicle does.
Yeah, I mean that solution. I think it's using the tools that are available in my perspective, and not trying to reinvent the wheel, but using that beautiful part of every industry, let's say, and put it into work. But I have one question that comes to mind, like in terms of efficiency. I mean, I understand the benefits on the parts of having the powertrain completely electric, and that that must be awesome. I need to have, I need to be on board of one of those vehicles as soon as possible. But having those benefits, talk to me in terms of engineering and efficiency, because I think I immediately tend to compare. All right, let's put this hybrid, the Hypertruck, sorry, and let's put a CNG truck, basic CNG truck with all its moving parts. And in terms of mileage and range, or let's say efficiency, thermal efficiency, can we run the same? Can we run a little bit more because the generator is more efficient? How does that correlate?
Yeah. So the great thing from an efficiency standpoint is when you set up the vehicle like this, you always get to keep the generator, or most of the time, you get to keep the generator right in its sweet spot, right? So when you think about driving a car, if you hit an uphill, you're gonna, your RPMs are gonna spike, the vehicle's downshifting, and now the truck's not operating in its sweet spot, or the engine isn't. Versus with us, we get to keep the engine right in that sweet spot, and it's constantly just creating
Of
a
course.
trickle charge into the battery pack, which helps from an efficiency standpoint. Now, from there, though, one of the things that we actually see as kind of the way that you keep on evolving this technology and keep making it better and better is actually it's less about improving the battery pack, which is what most BEVs are focused on. And
Hmm.
for us, it's about how do we keep on improving the efficiency of that generator under the hood? Because if we can take that natural gas or that hydrogen and convert it into electricity more efficiently, that improves your miles per gallon, right? That improves how the range of the vehicle, everything. It makes it better. So that's where we actually see the real area for opportunity, and we've actually laid out a 3-step roadmap of kind of how our generator in the truck is going to evolve. So to start, we're using a conventional natural gas engine. Then we're actually going to move to a fuel agnostic generator, which could run on natural gas or on hydrogen. And then eventually,
But still burning it, right? But still combustion.
uh, so we haven't come out with the exact technical details behind it yet, but it is not a internal combustion engine. And so from there
And the
though,
third spot?
uh, and the third one is a hydrogen fuel cell solution. And so that's really how we see the roadmap here happening of how do you ultimately get to hydrogen fuel cell. Now, we don't know, and I don't think anyone else really knows what's that timeline, right? There's so many factors that go into it. So is it a few years from now, or is it a few decades, or more than that from now, right? We'll see, right? We'll see how infrastructure gets built out and everything. But for us, we have that very clear roadmap to get to hydrogen and have a hydrogen future, but it's going to leverage natural gas to get us there. And that middle solution, fuel agnostic, that's really critical to the story because infrastructure is not going to happen overnight, and if you can give a fleet the flexibility of if you want to run this truck on natural gas you can, or if you want it to be a hydrogen truck it can be, then you're giving them the best of both worlds.
Of course, and that's kind of one of the things that gets me so excited in my front, because I come from the part of setting up these natural gas stations and building the infrastructure to then other people like small vehicles, OEMs or whatever, or even trucks are now developing the markets. But actually, we are envisioning what's going to happen then. Maybe hydrogen or electric come and gets all the share of the market, and then a solution like you're telling that can actually use the electric part of motors and vehicles, but also use natural gas and renewable natural gas could make our solutions, our infrastructure, available for many many years. And I see that as a realistic thing right now with companies like you guys are being developed. That's super
And
interesting. Go ahead.
to add, yeah, to add to that, I mean, we often get the question of like, well, why aren't we just going to go to full BEV? Whole industry will move to BEV. Well, eh, there's so many hurdles that we need to overcome to get there as well, and that it's just not practical. It doesn't make sense. Someone actually sent me an article yesterday where California is now encouraging all residents that own EVs to not plug them in right now because the grid's already overloaded, right? So
Go
we're already at a point where it's some single digit small percentage of the passenger car market that runs on electric, and we're already having to tell people, hey, don't charge your car because the grid can't handle it. And that's when you bring that into trucking, that then just magnifies drastically. Like there was a study done that showed plugging in two electric semi trucks would consume more electricity than an entire truck manufacturing plant. So two semi trucks is more than a whole factory in terms of electric consumption. So it's not practical to throw hundreds or thousands of trucks on the grid, because the support there, the infrastructure is not there to be able to really support the vehicle and charge them.
Yeah, and the bigger the industry, truck industry, like for example in North America, I mean, the bigger the challenge. It's a very interesting moment, and hopefully we will see what will happen, and I love to understand that. And I want to talk a little bit more about. I want to congratulate you guys. I saw recent videos about your new headquarters and how does it look. It looks really interesting, really amazing. I see you guys are growing, but tell me, Thomas, what actually are the challenges, the real challenges that you guys at Hyllion are facing today?
Yeah. So our challenges are really about commercializing the product, getting it out and deploying it and scaling up, right? And growing our organization, our team, and becoming a public company. I mean, those are kind of the challenges that we've been facing with, or overcoming here. And I think that's actually a really interesting thing, because a lot of the other people in this industry are faced with more challenges that are outside of their control, versus one of the nice things with us is the things that we need to have happen in the industry in order to make our product successful are already there, right? Charging or refueling infrastructure is there. Low cost fuel is there. The technology we need to produce, the actual powertrain, it's all there. We're not like, hey, we need to bend physics some here to be able to make this work. I mean, it's all there and practical. Now we're in this execution phase of making it happen. Versus when you look at some of the other technologies, they need breakthroughs in things that aren't even in their control in order to make some of these solutions work. And that's where, I think, having that roadmap that we were just talking about of kind of scaling into future generations and solutions that kind of it's this logical
Yeah,
progression of how to get to electrified trucking.
yeah, and like you're owning those difficulties. You know that is kind of part of the process, and you're actually tackling those. Tell me a little bit more about how is a regular day in your office. What problems are you actually tackling? Tell us, like, put us in that spot right now.
So it is wide ranged, and in my role, as a founder of the company and being the CEO, it's evolved a lot since being a private company and going public. Now there's a lot more outward facing engagements and really sharing our story and what we're up to. But I also still get to do a ton of fun things, like actually getting involved in the engineering side of things and where are we at in the commercialization process. And so I have this awesome role where I get to oversee a ton of different things and get to be involved in a ton of different things, and really get to help grow and nurture this company to go do something that we think can really go change the world here. And the fun part is there's an awesome team around me that's working on this as well. We've got extremely motivated individuals and people that are putting in a ton of hard work and effort to make this happen. And so I can truly say, like, showing up in the morning every single day is so much fun. And that's not just from my end. I think our team is having a blast doing this as well. And we all see that, there's a huge impact we can have here.
That's amazing. And talking about impact and the way that you see growth and the growth of the industry and what you guys are doing, I run into the theme of the console that you guys were developing. Tell us a little bit more about that console and what the goals are there and how are you trying to to embed many different players and try to move forward.
So we basically took some of the best names in the industry and brought them in to actually be part of the ERX development and deployment alongside with us. And so, as I'm sure you can imagine, when we launched and announced the Hypertruck solution, we were getting a tremendous amount of inbound interest from fleets and people in the industry, and frankly, it was overwhelming. We had too many people calling about it. Obviously, a great problem to have, but what we sat down and we said is, hey, we got to figure out how do we actually, how are we actually going to deploy and launch this and build some great relationships here. And so we took about a dozen groups that were extremely interested in our solutions and some great names, companies like Anheuser-Busch and Penske and Ryder, and Schneider, Werner, and some of the largest fleets here in the industry. And we said, would you guys be interested in actually being a part of this development cycle with us, giving us feedback along the way of what do you want to see the technology be able to achieve, what works for you, what doesn't work for you, what's really important, and be able to make sure that as we're going through this design and development process, we get the product right and we get it right the first time. And so that when we launch it, then we are going to have a successful solution. And then the best part is that these fleets have signed up to be the first companies to actually
Yeah.
run it in their operations as well. So that we're really excited about the Fleet Council. We've put out some news around it, but it's a great group of fleets and a great group to actually work with and dive into some of these details with.
That's an amazing idea. Kind of getting things, getting the maximum feedback and the way to do it. And I mean, what a great idea to move forward and get that product right, like the first time. I mean, that must be amazing. And Thomas, I want to talk now about what you were mentioning before about that roadmap, because even me have been in the industry. I mean, kind of this year I was exposed to only this year to what is going on with fuel cells and kind of the switching that's happening in great companies like Ceres Power or Spheres Power, like many others that are actually building uh, fuel cells that use methane, that can use methane, or like range extenders that are trying to be built with Weichai, or even ships that could be using this technology to generate electricity. Is that in the scope of Hyliion right now, using maybe in the future this part? Because I mean, I think that you could be agnostic to that part of the vehicle. I mean, if the powertrain is right, if the battery is correct, I mean, whatever can fuel that electric power could be okay. Is that in the horizon?
Yeah, yeah, you hit the nail on the head, right? It's really for us. It's about owning the electric powertrain and then being able to use whichever generator makes the most sense to charge the batteries. And whether that's an internal combustion engine, that's a fuel cell, that's other solutions, right? I mean, it's about, as we were talking about earlier, increasing that efficiency of a fuel to electric conversion. And the more efficiently we can do that, the more efficient the vehicle will be, the lower cost of ownership, all the above. And so, for us, it's a matter of looking at what is going to be the best solution under the hood from a generator standpoint. Use that with our powertrain so that we can offer fleets the best solution possible. And I think in the years ahead here, it will evolve, right? No doubt. I mean, technology is changing probably at one of the fastest paces. And I think for us, as we were talking about earlier, it's kind of interesting. It's less about battery development, and it's
Yeah.
actually about more how can we evolve that generator, because the electric grid has kind of grid power comes from a power plant, right? We're basically just taking a mini power plant and
Hmm.
bringing it with us on the truck to charge the batteries. And so our goal is to do that as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, and a mini power plant that can use energy from manure or fill landways or whatever. that's
Yeah.
that's the impressive part. Yeah.
the way, the way we like to share it is you're basically taking pollution and using that as your fuel to charge your batteries, which you can't really beat that.
Yeah, and man, well, as a person that have been right in the spot in like in the farm where I can see the biomethane being formed, it's an amazing experience. I recommend everyone to kind of go and see that for themselves. That that's amazing, and well, that puts you in a very sweet spot that you can be flexible according to what's going on with the technology that it's kind of winning and the panorama right there. I think that's amazing. I think that we can move forward to talk a little bit about maybe some policies. Recently, one of the news that maybe didn't get a lot of publicity, but for example, in Norway, like the parliament actually it's moving forward to equate biogas as a fuel to EVs and hydrogen, kind of to like balance that hype around EVs and actually those Nordic countries have a lot of EVs and
Mhm.
actually setting that bar kind of equal. It's a great thing. What are your thoughts on that? Can it be replied somewhere else? You think it's a good thing? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I've always kind of looked at it as you need to look at well to wheel emissions as opposed to just tailpipe emissions, right? Because, sure, it's great to have zero tailpipe emissions, but if you use a super pollutive process to create the fuel to charge the batteries, that defeats the purpose, right? And so you really need to look at well to wheel, which is I think what you're referring to, where you got to look at all the way from the beginning of how did that fuel get generated, get created,
Yeah.
and then what's the ultimate pollution that comes from it at the end. And as you're saying with RNG, I mean it's basically capturing methane coming off of landfills, dairy farms, wastewater treatment plants, and using that as a fuel in a vehicle as opposed to just letting it gas off and pollute the atmosphere. And that's where, back to what we were saying earlier, you can actually get below zero or net carbon negative numbers. And, to put an example to this, one of the fascinating studies, I think it was CARB that did it.
Hmm.
They looked at carbon intensity scores, which is basically just a rating for how pollutive is something, right?
Hmm.
They found that the carbon intensity score of grid electricity in California is in the low 80s. They found the carbon intensity score of conventional fracked natural gas is in the high 70s. So, right off the bat, fracked natural gas was cleaner than grid electricity. And then when you look at renewable natural gas, you actually had numbers as great as like negative 350 from an emissions CI score, a carbon intensity score. So obviously that just blows everything else out of the water in terms of emissions profiles, and it gets you to a point where it's actually cleaner to go drive your truck as opposed to not drive it.
Yeah, like nothing beats using wasted energy otherwise. Yeah, those studies from carbs are really interesting. Hopefully, I will leave them in this episode notes. And well, let me try to wrap up this interview and talk a little bit or reflect a little bit on some final thoughts and a question that I really love to ask the people I interview. It's what would you do? I mean, what would you change maybe around the transportation industry, around the industry that your company is right now? What would you change if you have a magic wand?
Yeah. So, I mean, the magic wand would be overnight. You could change all trucks over to being hyper trucks, and we would have hundreds of thousands, millions deployed tomorrow. Now, granted, that doesn't happen. That's not the way this industry works, right? You gotta roll solutions out and adopt them. But the thing that surprised me the most about this industry, which was interesting, was how receptive and interested fleets were. Coming in from being someone from outside the trucking industry, obviously, massive industry, been along for around time. I thought people were going to be extremely resistant to change. And I actually found the exact opposite. When you sit down with a fleet owner and operator and you bring them a logical solution and one that they can see how it really works for their operations, they're your biggest supporter. And we're actually at a phase now where we're almost, the technology is almost getting pulled out of us by fleets, as opposed to us trying to push it on them. They're like, hey, can I get this sooner? Like, when can I get my hands on this? Right. And that's a good position to be in. Going back to the comment of, I wish we could have systems deployed instantly. But it's been really exciting to see just how great to work with this industry has been, especially the fleet owners and head of maintenances at fleets. They really want electrification to happen, but they just need a solution that really works for them, and they see that in the Hypertruck.
That's a great story. I want to actually get to know one of the other questions that I'd like to ask you is tell us like a funny or memorable story that you kind of hold dear into your heart, that like through all this process, maybe a moment while developing something, some engineering thing. What moment do you treasure that that you remember like in a workplace in your home?
Yeah, so obviously the ringing the bell, New York Stock Exchange, pretty difficult to top that. But no, I think going back to the very early days of Hyliion, we were competing in a Department of Energy competition, and I mean this was early stage. We hadn't gone and raised money yet. We were just in this like seed stage, and we're going to business plan competitions,
Hmm.
and we decided, we were going to build a prototype and bring it to the headquarters of the Department of Energy, downtown DC.
All right.
Well, nothing ever goes as planned. Development takes longer, and basically we got to a point that we were loading up the truck. We were driving it to DC from Pittsburgh, and we basically pulled an all nighter, drove through the night, got there, put the prototype up for display for showcase, went in, pitched. We ended up winning the competition. We ultimately got in total $100,000 from the Department of Energy. It was a great win, but basically at the end of that, we were all exhausted, and I was like personally falling asleep at dinner with the team. Like we were trying to celebrate, but it was like we were all so exhausted because we had just like given it our all to get to that stage. But that's part of a startup journey, right? I mean, it's a 24/7 gig. You put everything you have into it to make it happen, and it's a roller coaster at the end of the day as well. Some things go amazingly, and some things don't go as planned, and you got to course correct. But the fun thing with being an entrepreneur is you get that opportunity to go try stuff and experiment and see what works and correct what doesn't.
What a great story, man. I mean, yeah, like I can see, like I can feel the experience. Like you need to celebrate today, and you guys are actually trying to celebrate. But come on, you actually can. I mean, it's yeah, yeah. I mean, what a great experience, Thomas. And I want to end this interview asking you, how can we get one of those Hypertrucks here in Mexico? I mean, I think that I can. I think that among. I mean, there are actually we are actually pretty young with CNG trucks. I believe that the first units actually started like the first couple maybe started getting in 2018, but like the curve to from 2018 to today, I mean, there are already dozens of companies, hundreds, maybe 500 or more trucks running around and sorry, maybe in the thousands right now. So the industry is picking up quickly. We are setting up infrastructure super quickly. It's not a super deal for us. It's difficult as everything, but we're in that place. And tell me, how can actually one get a hold of being first in line, getting in that process?
So I'll tell you, it's in the works. I mean, we see all of North America as being, our kind of launch location, and so U.S., Canada, Mexico. We see it as a great area to deploy this technology. Later this year, we're going to be doing our initial demo showcase vehicles, bringing them out to fleets. That fleet council I mentioned, they got first dibs, so we'll be doing showcases with them later this year. But the interest from Mexico has been strong. One of the things that people may not realize, which is very unique about the market down there, is you're also solving another problem, which is diesel trucks, at least from what I've heard, are notorious for having issues of people siphoning their fuel, and that costing fleets a tremendous amount of money. Well,
Huge
it's
amount.
you really can't siphon natural gas out of a truck. So that's another area where not only is it electrification, reducing emissions, reducing costs, now we're solving another problem as well as reducing theft of fuel. And so we see that as a strong opportunity, the kind of cherry on top. So we're definitely going to be bringing trucks down there as we go through this development phase.
That's great, Thomas. Yeah, that's right on spot. I mean, one of the it can start in 10% of your fuel cost, but can rise even to 30, 40%. You don't know actually, but it's huge, and that problem is actually we're putting a stop on that issue, and the fleet owners are super happy here just for that single.
Yeah.
Companies have made it actually the real decision of starting changing hundreds, maybe two, four, two, 300, 400 trucks based is specifically on that decision
Mhm.
point. I mean, they can steal my fuel. All right, I'm taking that, and that's a game changer here in this part
Yeah.
of the continent. Well, thank you very much, Thomas. One more thing, where can people reach out to you, reach out to the company, learn more about their products and what you guys are up to?
Yeah, so go to hyliion.com, Hyliion.com, and we got a lot of information about the products, about our company, our culture, the team that we have, and join us for this journey. It's for sure an exciting one. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Wish you the best. Bye bye.
Bye.